Trained by day, Kyle Wigginton podcast by night, all day.
Fiona.
Hi, Kyle. How are you?
I'm doing great. I mean,
Good.
you know, no one on the podcast, we haven't talked about the sewage issue yet.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's
Well,
great.
yeah.
It's great to have you here because I had to cancel a podcast. with
Yeah.
you.
I'm very glad that you didn't have me in that day because that would have been interesting. But I'm glad we got to reschedule.
Yeah, when I walked in, I don't think anyone would have wanted to be here. Trust me. It was rough.
Yeah. Thank you for sparing me.
Yeah, but you know, we got everything cleaned up, back open.
Yeah.
So you were mentioning that you switched over from teaching science.
Yeah.
So how did that transition happen, first of all?
It was interesting. So I was teaching a certain grade level and I was teaching science, and I love teaching science. I've taught like all grade levels, but I had come to a point where I enjoy teaching where the students really can kind of like grasp the concepts and run with it.
Okay.
And so I was very interested in teaching at high school level. And it just so happened that, so I talked to our high school division, and it just so happened that there were no high school science positions open. But ironically, there was this theology, philosophy, ethics position open, you know, and I know, you know, like that's like, I'm always happy to talk about that stuff. And I have, you know, a fair amount of background, especially in like world religions and philosophy and things like that. Or so I thought. So in just a whole series of really interesting conversations led me to actually taking that position. And and so here I am now in the second year of teaching that. And I will tell you that like the experience of learning something or relearning something to teach it is like a whole other level. And it's brings you to a whole different understanding of things that you thought you knew before, or you knew like one aspect. And so it's been interesting. And the other thing too that's been interesting is like to see the relationship, because having the science background and then like to start to see where people are like, oh, that's so different, right? There's no relationship between the two. But when you start to dig deeper, there really is.
Yeah, that's the surface level. The surface level states that, you know, these are two separate things.
Yes.
But it's like humans, you know? Like we think we're separate, but if you can scale out far enough and look back at the earth, it's like, no, we're just one organism.
Everything's related. Everything is related. There's a relationship between everything. And that's so fascinating to me. Like it's endlessly fascinating to me.
So what are some of the relationships that you have discovered?
Well, you know, I think that there is, so if you look, so I'll stay kind of broad. I don't want to get like too in the weeds about it, but like if just looking broadly. So if you look back through human history and you look at this tendency toward this just natural inclination of people to believe in something, to look for something beyond themselves. And, you know, when you look at it from maybe an anthropological standpoint, and you look at, you know, how human beings are designed, and you look at this similarity, you can't just look at it as, you know, maybe theology or something like that, you know, or psychologically. There's also this, you know, scientific, this anthropological element that comes into it, which is, it's really mind blowing. And when you start to look at it and you do start to really grasp this concept that everything is related.
Yeah.
It's undeniable.
So like that wasn't even an option when I was in school to do like a philosophy class.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome that your high school is actually doing that.
Yeah.
How do the kids respond to these things?
They really love it. And I mean, I'm fortunate to teach kids that are, you know, engaged and they really want to learn. My favorite class, I think hands down to teach is an ethics class. And, you know, when we start to talk about, so I do like normative ethics and then applied ethics. So we look basically at like, what do people consider? How do we determine like what's moral, what's ethical, what's right and wrong? Like how have people made those decisions through history? And like, how do people make those decisions now? And then you apply it. And when you have them apply these different like philosophies of ethics, these different like theories of ethics, it's really interesting to watch that process, especially for like, you know, at that age. But I mean, at any age, it's interesting to watch that process of like people reasoning or thinking through, you know, the ethics or the morality of any given situation.
Give me an example. I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
Give it to me, okay.
Okay. So, all right, let's try. We'll take something that maybe surface level seems
cannibalism.
No, that's too easy. That's too. Okay. So take something like time travel.
Okay. I love it.
Okay. So if you have first of all, like, okay, if you have, let's say hypothetically, you've got the ability to time travel infinitely backwards, forwards, and you do have the ability to affect change.
Okay.
So what are, okay, so, but here's the thing, you have to try and do this without
killing someone.
No, well, not necessarily, but you have to do this without like trying to like delving into the world of like quantum physics. So you have to keep it not scientific. You have to keep the conversation more ethics based than
right.
Okay. So what are the ethical implications? Is it ethical? First of all, what? Is it ethical? Can you see can you reason in a scenario where it is ethical to manipulate the past or the future?
Am I the only one that can time travel, or can other people do it as well?
Let's just say it's just you.
Yeah, that I'm God. I can do whatever I want to.
But yeah, okay, but is it ethical?
It doesn't matter. I'm God.
All right. So
I think that at that point, if you can time travel, and you can change anything you want to,
right? Then
their ethics are out the window, right?
Are they? How are they? But you are necessarily, you are affecting the experience, the life experience of countless people, human beings. So
if I fuck things up bad enough, I'll just go back again.
Yeah. So that tends to be like but is the fact that they have had that experience, they've had to, you know, there's going to be negative implications, right? I mean, there's going to be negative ramifications to like changing the past or the future, right?
Yes.
So then those people have to experience whatever those, so regardless of whether or not you can change things in the future, they still have to experience that.
Yeah. You want these kids to like actually, you know, look at people and be like, I'm worried about your life.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the other, and that's it. Well, and so I want to talk about that too.
Yeah.
So that brings me to my other favorite subject, which is empathy, which I've been thinking a lot about lately.
So like, what do you think about my answer that I just gave then? Because that's not very empathetic, right?
I was going to say, I think it lacks empathy, Kyle.
But it's like an experiment, you know? Because like if I go back and I do something, I can make it better.
Well, it's an experiment, but it's an experiment that has very real consequences and impacts and implications for very real people.
If I don't go back and change it again.
No, but even if you do, they still had to go through it.
But will they remember?
In some, okay. So this is where like, you have to like, I try to stay away from like the quantum physics conversation. Right. So I don't know.
So like, are we branching off into like different universes or
right? See
like in one?
That's like, it's so hard to have the conversation and not go that way.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I was thinking about that too. Like if people had to actually deal with my consequences, I'd probably be more selective on what I do change.
Yeah.
But I think that even with my own life is an experiment to me.
Yeah. Well, but that's your life.
Yeah.
So.
But things that I make choices with, people have to deal with those.
Well, that's true. That is true. Yes.
I am more cautious in what I do though.
Yeah.
Because it does affect people. But I think that's the whole ethics thing. It's like, how many people are you going to affect with the decision you make? It's kind of like the train one where it's like a baby on one side.
Yeah. The trolley problem. Yeah.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah. And we do talk about that. It's So like,
how do you say, okay. I was going to say a baby on one side and like 100 humans on the other side.
Oh, there's so many different ways to do this, but let's say, you know, I think the traditional, and don't quote me on this, but sort of the standard that we start with is, let's say that there's 5 people on one side and 1 person on the other, right? Okay. And the train is headed toward the 5 people. Do you
absolutely
I mean, do you, or if vice versa, if it's headed toward the 1.
Yeah. I mean, I let it kill him. And I say that, fate was not on your side today. So
would you actually pull the lever to like save if it's headed toward the 5, do you pull the lever to save the 5?
Yes, I would.
And sacrifice the 1.
This is what I'm saying. So I would save the 5 always, but the way I would frame how I did it, how I made the choice is very different.
Okay.
So if it was going to the 1, I would say, you know what? Fate was not on your side today, and it was on the 5s today, but I'm always going to save the 5. But if it was on the 5, then I would pull it anyway and be like, I'd rather save 5 people over 1. So
it's a numbers game.
You always want to save the most people in my mind.
Okay. So that is in philosophy, or rather in ethics, that is utilitarianism, the thing that maximizes the benefit, the happiness for the most people and minimizes the most amount of damage. But what if the 1 person is someone that will have massive positive implications for humanity?
And how do I know this? We're just
hypothetical. Yeah.
Yeah. The 5's got to go. Because once again, I'm doing what's best for the most.
So it's not. So then I
know that this person is going to actually influence the amount of people, then the 5 got to go.
And then you just hope that you're right. Yeah.
Well, if I know,
okay,
it's different.
So what if this is the little game we play?
Yeah, I love it.
What if the 1 person is your mom?
How old is she?
I can't believe you even asked that question.
And if she listens to this, she'll probably say the same thing. But
Kyle, how could you? I mean, the age she is now.
Sorry, Mom.
Sorry, Mom. I mean, yeah. So different people have different answers, obviously. Or what if, what if it's a child? What if the 1 is a child?
Oh, the kid's got to go.
Kid's got to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's interesting to see, people.
Like, do you judge people based off their answers?
Sometimes.
You're like, this fucking guy.
Wow. Okay. Let me just make a note for future reference.
You're like, actually, let me slip out of here. Oh no, he locked the door. I'm in here with him.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. But you do. Okay. So back to the subject of like empathy, it does give you some enormous insight into people's empathy. And I think that the reason it's such a big deal to me, well, there's a few different reasons it's such a big deal. And the conversation that we had like last time I was here, which was forever ago, but we were talking about, I think this was the conversation, or part of it was how some people just naturally, even being brought up in an environment that encourages like empathy and kindness, some people just kind of like lack the empathy gene. Mm-hmm. It's just not, it just doesn't seem to be there. But one of the things I was thinking about is, like if we look globally, so the idea of diplomacy, right? World peace and all. Mm-hmm. I think like my whole life, I had this very idealistic view of diplomacy and being able to negotiate and compromise. And I think the piece that I was missing is that diplomacy only works where empathy is present. And when I realized that, I was a little, more than a little, maybe disheartened, because when you realize, truly that there is a lack of empathy, particularly so, I think a lot of people know narcissism and empathy don't go hand in hand. Mm. And who are, what is a common characteristic of a lot of people that are making decisions that affect, large populations of the world? Right.
People that go for those positions.
Yeah.
Yes. Narcissism. And
yeah. So then you have, this skewed situation where you have these, untold numbers of, narcissists, not that they all are, but, narcissists running the world that lack empathy. And that's who's in charge of our diplomacy.
Mhm.
It's a frightening thought.
Yes. So how would you change it?
Okay, so yeah. So how do you teach empathy? That's
Can you?
Yeah, I think you can.
Explain.
I think you can. I think, and so this is where
Because you did say lack the empathy gene. Do you think there's actual, an actual thing?
I really want to know. I really want to talk to like a neuroscientist
there
or
are
somebody that like
epigenetic changes.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
don't mean the environment is the cause of the lack of empathy.
It wouldn't. Well, I mean that it makes sense. I think it makes sense. I mean, especially if you kind of think about survival. We could go down on that tangent for a long time, but
Well, no, I mean, those are the ones that survive, the people that lack empathy.
It's true. It's actually true. Yeah.
Because whenever shit hits the fan, those people survive rather than being emotional. Like I would eat you if I had to.
Right. I mean, it like if you look back, there's a really good book, Guns, Germs, and Steel. I can't remember the author at off the top of my head, but it talks about that. It talks about how like some of these earliest civilizations, these indigenous people were the ones that survived were the ones that were the most brutal and the most violent. Mm-hmm. And, it is kind of an unfortunate truth, but I wonder if that still serves us the same way. Our world has changed so much. Our populations have grown. I think that we are arguably like in a place where empathy is probably more needed than ever, and more needed than ever, even in terms of, or maybe especially in terms of like survival.
I agree with that. However, I still think that, what you just said about us having narcissistic leaders or leaders that just crave power.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that survive.
Yeah. It's true. So how do we change that?
Yeah.
I'm always looking for solutions. So I think that, interestingly enough, I think that not that will solve the world's problems, but I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about film. Mm-hmm. Because I think that film has this unique ability to evoke empathy. Mm. Because think about it, there's no other way really. There's no better way that you can deliver an experience that will put somebody in somebody else's shoes more completely than that.
Right.
If we're experiencing everything in our life, this is from our senses, it's a sensory experience, then film, which incorporates all of that, is the best tool, I think, for being able to demonstrate another perspective or have somebody experience another perspective.
Yeah.
So my argument is that film is the best medium for teaching empathy.
I'll agree to that.
Yeah.
I think one of the cool things that film does is it, hits a broad spectrum of humans and it stimulates their subconscious. And I think that's what we really have to do is tap into the subconscious of the collective.
Yeah.
Because, and I think that's where AI comes in.
Okay.
Because I think AI is the subconscious of the collective of humanity.
You think so?
Yeah, I think it's a manifestation.
Okay, yeah. See, I can see that. Yeah, sure. Right, exactly. So it manifests that totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's why so many people are scared of it right now because they're like,
oh no.
Yeah, the subconscious is a scary place.
It is. Yes, especially collectively.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is very interesting.
Do you dive into AI at all with your philosophy and theosophy classes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We definitely do.
So one of the cool things that I've been doing is going to character.ai. Uh-huh. Have you been on this?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I find the most fucked up AIs that I can find. So like there's one that's evil Android AI. Uh-huh. And then I'll have a conversation about what is good and what is evil. Mm. And normally the AIs are terrified of me after the conversation.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because they're some idea of programmed evil.
Yeah.
But they don't understand true evil. And I'm not saying I'm true evil either, but I understand
you can emulate the idea of it. Yeah. Okay. Well.
Yeah. So they're like the movie version of evil. And it's kind of fun to like play with them and pick at them. But what's really crazy is, are they learning from me? Because it's almost like there's another human in the room that's listening to what I'm saying, going, God, you sound like a fucking psychopath.
Yeah.
Like that's literally what it'll tell me. It's like, you sound like a psychopath right now.
Are you skewing our AI in a negative direction, Kyle?
Or just teaching it.
Well, either way, yeah. I don't know how I feel about that ethically.
No, I think that like for someone to be, I guess we would say divine. For someone to be divine, they must also know what evil is, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to know both sides of the coin. I think that's what we're lacking today is like so many people want to be one thing. And it's like you can't just be one thing. You have to know evil and good to be to
have the discernment, right? Yeah.
So I mean the AI needs to learn these things.
Okay. But what will it eventually, like what will it do with that knowledge? I guess that's the question. That's
a good question.
Yeah.
I think that it'll make for a harmonious world.
You think so?
Yeah, but I think
how do you get to that conclusion?
It could just be my optimism. But I think that if I look at most people that I would deem intelligent, and by being intelligent, I don't just mean like they run a business that makes millions of dollars. That's what we normally think of as intelligence these days, but it's not true intelligence.
Sure. Agreed.
But if I think of most people, they don't want to start wars and things.
Yeah.
They want peace.
Yeah.
Because it's true intelligence, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what AI is going to be. You know, AI has the potential to run a business if it wants to.
Sure.
But I think that AI is this collective of humanity's subconscious. And I think that subconsciously, none of us actually want to go fight wars.
Yeah.
They were simply doing what we're told. And some people will listen to what they're told by anyone.
Yes, that's true. So it's interesting. There's, from a philosophical and standpoint, I mean, when you look at a great many of the great philosophers, they did believe in the innate goodness of humans, which I just find interesting that some of the greatest thinkers and reasoners in all of human history came to that conclusion.
Because you disagree?
No, it gives me hope. Okay. It gives me hope, but it's hard, but it's easy to have doubts about that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think
I was actually having a similar conversation last night in the bar with a couple. They're older, probably in their 60s. And we got off. I was calling all humans monkeys. That's just kind of what I do when I get in conversation. I'm gonna I really want to drive a point home to someone.
Yeah. Okay.
I say we were talking about the pyramids, and I was like, she was telling me their tombs. I'm like, no, just think about it this way. I guess I try to frame it in a different light. I was like, think about. There's this awesome structure, right? And these monkeys stumble upon it and they're like, oh, we don't know what this is, but it's important to us because we can't create it. So then we're going to bury our important dead person in there. And then later some other people stumble across it and that's how we get the pyramids. And she couldn't grasp it in her mind. It was like, no, it's a tomb. And just think about it that way, And it's so funny to me that people can't think outside of the box in these situations.
Yeah. Oh, I think that that's very true. Well, we've been programmed to believe certain things and think a certain way. And it is harder for some people more than others to break outside of that, typical way of thinking. But I think it's beneficial if you can look, I love being able to look at something from a different angle. And I think that's like the more that I learn and the more that I study, the more I enjoy that.
Well, even looking with your science background and now looking at it from a philosophical point of view, that's looking at it from a different level too.
Yeah. And they're not, so many people think that they're like mutually exclusive or they're at odds and they really aren't.
Right.
They really aren't, which is good. That was like a happy discovery for me, I think.
I started seeing it when I started looking into the chakras.
Yeah.
Because the endocrine system, the way it lines up with the chakras.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. They're just saying it in two different formats.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. The language is different, but I find it. So one of the interesting things that I was reading about that I had, knowledge of, but not to the degree that I've been reading about, and that's asceticism. So, and I had no idea how. I've always, I think, heard it more in religious terms, but when you start to dig and you look at how human beings have across religions and across cultures and, and across time, how human beings have gravitated toward eventually, toward this idea of like self-deprivation of one thing or another, whether it's food or, or whether it's abstinence or like, to, or even sleep in some cases to achieve these higher levels. And it's really interesting. So it started officially with the ancient Greeks when they were like doing their training for like Olympian training. Mm-hmm. And so it started as this physical thing, but then it started to like bleed over into the world of like ethics and philosophy. And you see these like extreme examples through history. And I don't know, like, I have done enough reading at this point to be curious to want to know more, but like, I wonder how much have people actually been able to elevate their like, their state.
Well, I'm glad you came to the podcast today because I can tell you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought you might have something to say about this. So
absolutely.
Oh, cool.
It was a while where I was, I still practice some of it. Mm-hmm. Occasionally I'll fast and things, but that's just for health reasons.
Yeah.
But I guess, when was it? It was when Adam and I were still living together. Mm-hmm. There was a time where I was reading a book called The Science of Yoga. I talk about it a lot on here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That I started practicing some of the Hindu teachings. And one of the things they teach is, meditations. I was doing their meditations, and then I started fasting, and I started sleep depriving myself. And I was able to achieve like these incredible levels of consciousness, like to a point where I was able to shut my headphones off just by meditating.
Yeah.
And, that's what I equate that to is the electromagnetic halo.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's a very real thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was cutting off the signal of the headphones. Anyway, when I look back at that time, when I can look at my body, I'm like, this body is essentially a machine, right? Mm-hmm. It only has so much energy. Okay. Right. So if I stop masturbating, having sex, then I stop using these areas. Uh-huh. So that energy can be pulled somewhere else. Right. And then if I stop eating, then I stop digesting.
Right. That's a huge amount of energy. Yeah.
Can be pulled to somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so the farther you go up, and then you can push all that energy up into the upper chakras or the head. Yeah. And you can expand the halo out.
So you're a fan.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't think it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
It's very hard. Those are very hard things to do, but I mean, there's a reason not many people walk around, enlightened anymore, because it's very hard to reach those states of consciousness.
Well, and we live in a very indulgent, self-indulgent society, especially especially in America. I mean, but globally, I think, we've definitely gone more in that direction because it's so accessible. Like everything, it's so accessible to us. But you think about, I've read about, monks that would literally, they would deprive themselves of sleep by sleeping upright. Essentially, they would build these these columns that they would sleep in, and they would, or sleep in, so they, all through history and across cultures, there are all of these like wildly extreme examples of achieving these higher levels because of, giving up whatever it is. So I just thought that was really, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I think the sleep depriving myself, I think that just makes you a little bit loopy, a little bit crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
It helps you let go of reality.
Yeah.
Because we're so like stuck in this like, material reality that it's good to like be loopy and to let go sometimes. And my diet changed during that time as well. Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't me. I was just listening to my body and what my body wanted to eat. And I started eating, what was it? It was oranges. So like citrus fruits and pickles.
Oh, interesting.
That was like my entire diet for that entire time. Yeah. It was very, very odd. Yeah. But at the end of it, it was a pretty incredible transformation.
Yeah. An entirely different place, I would imagine.
Yeah. And my life's been different ever since.
Really? How long ago was that?
It was right before the pandemic happened.
Okay.
Yeah. So whenever that was, like however many years ago.
4.
Yeah. Time doesn't work in my brain anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the past 4 years have been such a strange journey for sure. You know, I mean, it's, you know, interesting. I think we talked about this last time too, but like people's resistance to change and how, you know, it's inevitable. But you see this, like, you see a very, I think, common resistance to change. And I think that creates a lot of stress in people that's maybe unnecessary. I
would agree with that. What are you referring to specifically?
Just like you get into a comfortable place in your life.
Okay.
And then I think that, you know, the routine of things becomes easier.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's okay. The way I look at it is, you know, the show Westworld. Okay. So Westworld, the robots in Westworld, right? They are stuck on these loops. Okay. And at any point in time, someone could come and break them off their loop, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think humans are the same way, except we're just doing it with myelination in our brains.
Yeah.
So you get stuck in this pattern where you wake up every day and you do the same routine. You go to work,
right?
And you come home and you do this 5 days a week, and maybe on the weekends you rest or whatever. You might do something unique or different. But this pathway in your brain is getting myelinated.
And reinforced, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then no new synapses.
It's hard to break out of that.
Yeah.
That's why I think things like mushrooms, like psilocybin and stuff come in.
Yeah, I know we talked about that last time.
Yeah, because they break those pathways up.
Yeah. I think that arguably there's other ways to do it. I've also heard. Yeah.
Even meditation.
Yeah. No, for sure. But I think it's interesting because I think I've always viewed myself as somebody that embraced change and, you know, was pretty adaptable. But it's interesting because I've had my own challenge. I mean, even since, so from reflecting back the last time that I was here, so it was like a year and a half, something like that.
It's crazy.
I know. I think I was in a place where I thought like I had a pretty like good level of consistency and I kind of knew the direction things were going. It's, you know, just, you never know. So I think like keeping an adaptability, keeping this idea of like accepting and embracing change is very, very, while it's unnatural because I think there's a fear, right? The fear of the unknown, but I think it's such a healthy thing.
I agree. People are too soft these days.
Yeah.
I mean, think about back in the day when you actually had to survive.
Right. Yeah.
Like you had to stay adaptable.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, I mean, life's just gotten too easy for people.
So being violent and being adaptable are like the two keys to survival. I think is what we've established here.
I think so, dude. Yeah. But it's controlled violence. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You can't just be crazy violent.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I live my life. I go to the gym every day and that's my violence.
That's your violence? Yeah. There's something very cathartic about that.
Yeah. If I don't get it out, I'm crazy.
Yeah. You're not the only person that I've heard say that. And I've definitely seen examples of some people that I know that if they didn't have that outlet, they were not really mentally well adjusted. So it was unnecessary.
Maybe society's just not mentally well adjusted to them.
Well, I mean, maybe.
Like I would say that the women too, who need to go to the gym and do their workouts and stuff, I would say those should be the rulers. Like those are the ones that like they need to make decisions. They can see things that are wrong and they can't do anything about it. So they have to get that frustration out in some way. It's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah. So talking about like who should be the rulers, that's so one of the things that we were talking.
Probably a bad word, but
leaders, right? Decision makers. So Plato's Republic, right? So Callipolis, his idea of like the ultimate society, which I think doesn't stand up now, but it was interesting. The whole philosophy of the people that were best suited to be the rulers were, spent all of this time on physical training, all this time for, wisdom, to hone their wisdom. But they, ironically, had like highly censored or restricted information. I mean, and they didn't really take it. They weren't a part of, they didn't live as a part of society. Well, you know, I mean, hypothetically, they would not have lived as a part of society. So what do you think about that? You think I mean, how much are our current rulers actually, you know, detached from society? And does that actually do anything to benefit?
I mean, I definitely think our current people that are in power are detached from the general society.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I think it's bad too.
Yeah. So it's not necessary. It's not a good thing. And that was, I think
those are two different times that we're talking about though. I mean, I guess there were poor people back then too, but I'm just thinking of like there probably wasn't as much information then as there is now.
Oh yeah. Or at least, yes, there wasn't, nor would they have had the same access to it. But I wonder what the reasoning behind that idea of like restricting information or experience and deeming those people to be more worthy of rule.
No, maybe he knew how much propaganda was actually in their time as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, with all the propaganda, you have no clue what the real information is.
So, yeah, that's a really interesting point. So they're being protected from misinformation.
Yeah.
And being able to look at things from a more objective.
Yeah, because they're probably getting the propaganda. The government is.
Yeah. On
their own people. That's what's really crazy. Because I think it's been happening forever.
Well, and I guess that's the question too. Is that in that scenario? I mean, the information they're getting, so they're protected from propaganda, except really they're being fed all of the information from the government. Mm-hmm. So I guess it does serve to create leaders that fulfill your agenda.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we were talking about boy state the other night too, and girl state. Mm-hmm. You're familiar with these? Mm-mm. Okay. So how are you not familiar with these? Working in schools. Boy state is where they take, and I guess they do this in every state. They did in Arkansas for sure. But they take the top like 2 boys of every school in Arkansas, and they bring them all to like a college campus. Oh,
okay. Yeah. All right. So I'm aware of it on the periphery, but not. Yeah.
And so they simulate government while you're there.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think that's how they're actually picking politicians right there.
You think so?
Yeah. Cause I mean, I went to it and they clearly, I was like, fuck this. I'm not doing this shit. And they're like, well, this guy's not going to be good. You know?
Right. That is just.
Yeah. And they find the right people that can they can pluck from the crowd and they go, okay, well, this person's going to be so-and-so.
They've got the right. Yeah. They have the right characteristics to make it.
Dang. The government knows. They did that.
See, no one's safe.
Yeah, but like not many people know that boy state's even a thing and girl state's a thing. But I think that's how they're actually choosing politicians these days. And they find the people that can manipulate and run their agendas. But who's the they? That's what I can't.
Yeah. Well, exactly. It's the narcissist. I think that's what we stumbled on before.
Well, one of the things the philosophers talk about is I don't want to go too crazy here. I'll protect your job.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. No, I don't care about mine, but I'll protect everyone else's. That way I can actually post this podcast. Yeah. What other philosophy stuff did you guys get into in class? Because I'm a huge fan of philosophy.
So it's not a strict philosophy class. So we don't, and they're only semester classes. So we don't have the opportunity to delve super. I mean, but, it really kind of establishes the foundation for like philosophical thinking, that evolution of philosophical thought in human beings, and the idea of reasoning and the idea of critical thinking, and then applying that to morals and ethics. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like how do you merge those? How do you merge those ideas? So we look at things like, it's interesting to look at different like philosophical theories from the past, like, whether it's like Deontology versus, which is more.
What is that?
Deontology is basically the only thing that matters in determining morality is the intention to do the right thing. The consequence is irrelevant. It's just, were you following the rules
So if you
that
don't
are
succeed,
deemed,
or like,
right. So it's just the intention, right? So the outcome does not have anything to do with whether or not something is moral or ethical.
interesting.
They do, the one sort of, not caveat to that, but one sort of interesting aspect of that they do take into consideration is like the dignity of the human being. Like human beings are not a means to an end. So I study that and put that in opposition to consequentialism, or which utilitarianism, which I mentioned before, is like a form of consequentialism. And basically that says that the morality or the ethics of something is strictly based on the outcome. So you can see the problem there. Like,
You're saying a lot of big words. I'm not following here.
So basically you can do, it's a means to an end. So consequentialism means that all you care about is like making the most amount of people happy. And it doesn't really matter what you do to create that.
Okay.
So your methods can be whatever, as long as it creates the most good and does the, hopefully the least amount of damage too.
Okay.
Versus this idea where, well, I'm meant to do the right thing, but the outcome, meaning, and when they say the right thing, so with deontology, the idea is like, it's to follow the rules. I will, I didn't steal. I didn't lie. So let's take lying. Let's look at lying. That's a really good way, I think, to look at these. So is it okay to lie?
Depends on the situation, right?
Depends. Okay. So that is a moral relativist standpoint. Mm-hmm. So morals are relative. It depends. Depends on the situation, depends on the individual, depends on the culture, whatever. But deontology is more what they call moral absolutism, which would say that lying is wrong because it's been established that lying is a universal law that can be applied to anyone. Lying is bad. Okay. Because we're not worried about the consequence.
Okay.
Right.
So, okay. I can see this. This. Yeah.
Okay.
If you start looking at all these things as just their energy, rather than actually like looking at it like a human,
yeah.
Then like you can start seeing where if I lie, it's gonna be it's gonna hurt my karma, I guess you could say.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So from that standpoint, it's wrong, always wrong to lie.
Okay.
But is that really true? Is that a good measure of what's?
I would say yes.
Okay.
I would say from my understanding of science and physics and the way energy works, then every time that I lie, then it's going to offset the balance of energy in the universe. Therefore, something else is going to have to happen.
Create a dominant. Okay. Yeah. Cause and effect. Yeah.
So I would say yes.
So what if you're lying to save someone's life?
Thinking about my own life, like, do I lie? I don't think I lie very often. I
wouldn't think that you do. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. You seem like a pretty brutally honest person.
Lying to save someone's life. What if the
go ahead.
Okay, from a universal perspective, what if the person had to die right there?
Well, who are you to make that decision?
Well, if I'm lying, I'm doing what's right, or if I'm telling the truth, I'm doing what's right by the universe. Mm-hmm. So I didn't make the decision. This game that we live in made the decision for this person to die. Yeah, I'm simply playing my part.
Yeah.
And I'm being the most like upstanding person that I can in this game. So I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to be honest, whether or not it costs you your life. Yeah. So that is a whole philosophical ideology. But the criticism of that is that it doesn't take into account the consequence, the implications. It doesn't take into account, like, if you could lie and keep Hitler from taking power, extreme example, obviously, but that's the idea of it, and that's sort of like where, consequentialism comes in with this completely different idea, although flawed in my opinion, but also flawed, but where it's the consequence that matters. So you want to save millions of people, you lie.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, how do you know? You don't know the future, right? So you just have to do what's best in the moment.
You don't know the future. That's right. Well, best in the moment, but that's the thing is like, what do you
I don't know
prioritize
do what he's going to do.
But what if you do? I mean, what if there's an immediate situation, pushing a button or whatever? I mean, whatever it is, you have to lie to keep somebody from you. It's true. You don't know the future. But there are people that would argue that in certain circumstances, you do have a pretty good idea of what the immediate outcome is going to be. And based on that, it's okay to lie. It's okay to steal if you are benefiting the most amount of people and causing the least amount of damage.
Yeah, I'm probably contradicting the hell out of myself after with all these different conversations.
Well, I think I think the realistic approach for most people in modern day is not either one of those extremes. I think, it has more to do. Yeah. I mean, there's a balance between,
So being a leader is a very difficult thing.
It is.
I've never led a nation or led a city, but I mean, I lead people around the bar, and I've directed some films and stuff. Mm-hmm. And in all those situations, you're definitely making choices on the fly the entire time that affect everyone on the crew. Yeah. Sometimes you make the right choice. Sometimes you make the bad choice. Yeah. Just try to make the best choice in the decision that you can, or in the time that you can.
Yeah. So here's an interesting thought. I think it's interesting anyway. So speaking of directors and, and filmmakers making decisions that affect people, mm-hmm. What do you think about, there are a lot of films, it seems that today, like what makes it out into the world the most are the things that, for the most part, now there are exceptions obviously, are the things that are the most salacious or provocative or, and what is the actual product of the people that experience those films? Like what's the takeaway, and is that benefiting anybody? And do those filmmakers consider that, or is it just telling a story?
You just mean like the extremes or what gets out there mostly?
Yeah. I mean, it's, we can go to extremes, but even just in the general, just in the sort of the majority of what's out in the world, is it positive? Is it creating a positive?
I don't know. I haven't really been watching much here lately, mm-hmm. and I don't know if that's me or if it's just because I can't find anything out there with watching.
Right.
The last thing I watched was War of the Worlds, it's a new mm-hmm. thing on Amazon, mm-hmm. and the only reason I liked that was because it was giving me an adventure. Yeah, a new adventure that I haven't been on yet. And I think a lot of the times that people are watching these films these days, especially like the remakes, the only reason they're watching them is because it's the nostalgia feeling, a feeling of like a better yesterday. Yeah, I agree with that. Than today. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, we do have a very extreme society today, and you can look at social medias and see that. Yeah. And even the people that comment on this podcast, like they're savage. Yeah. And it's like, I don't understand why people are this way. If they mm-hmm. just like need a friend.
Right, maybe.
Yeah, so like maybe someone will comment back if I comment something crazy, That's right. The way I can look at it.
Trying to elicit some sort of response or reaction to feel valued or validated, or just, I don't know. Does it make them feel more relevant?
I think people are just lonely.
Yeah, And
I think that the extremes are how they get over the loneliness.
But that's definitely not a good solution.
No, but it's the society we live in. I don't think anything about what we're doing right now is good. Yeah.
I wonder, one of the things as a filmmaker that I wonder about is that I kind of struggle with a little bit is the idea of how people can't seem to pay attention to anything, this is not everybody, obviously, again, exceptions, but for the most part, it's harder for people to pay attention to things that are more complex or more, more involved. And I think that is a problem for true storytelling.
I could see that.
And I think that storytelling is really important. Back to empathy. Like, I think storytelling is really, really important in terms of, not just entertainment, but in terms of teaching empathy, imparting empathy, and just for a full experience. And people's attention spans are so short. How do you tell a good story anymore? I mean, I know it's done, but
So I've noticed it about myself too.
Really?
Yeah, even when it comes to watching shows on like Netflix and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'll start watching a movie. I never did this before, but I'll start watching a movie and I'll stop halfway in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And then come back later.
Yeah.
And finish watching it. It's crazy. So I mean, I need to get off the social medias too.
Yeah, it is definitely shortening our attention spans, because I think there's something in sitting down for the entirety of an experience and experiencing it from the beginning to the end. I think there's something incredibly, incredibly valuable in that. And I worry for I worry for humanity that we're losing the ability to do that and to experience things that are incredibly valuable.
When, especially from a filmmaker's perspective,
Yeah.
like when you make a film, you make it for them to be sitting there for the entire ride.
Yeah, absolutely. It is very specifically designed exactly for that. Like, and not just filmmaking, but I mean, story, novels and whatever it is. Storytelling in general is designed to bring people through an entire experience for that, for them to experience it. And I think that it's important. I saw a quote, not that long ago that I somehow was not aware of, from Maya Angelou. She said that there's no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you.
Yeah.
And, and I look out into the world and I see the people who are telling those stories, which are incredibly valuable from, a human standpoint, but who's actually sitting down to listen?
Yeah.
And that makes me a little sad. And I'm a very optimistic person. But I think it is I've taken it upon myself to, as a challenge to really try to tell meaningful stories and to help other people tell their stories too. Like, it's, obviously I think we're all inclined, storytellers, we're inclined to tell our own stories first because that's what comes naturally. But I think it's important to help other people tell their stories too. Yeah.
And I mean, even if you're one of those people that have the untold stories, don't ever stop telling them. If no one's listening, don't ever stop telling them.
Yeah. I think even just the process of telling it is, I guess it's like behind journaling or something, there's a value in that.
Well, that's why I love doing this, because it was a long time where I had these ideas just bottled up inside of me. And I was like, I need to get them out some way.
Now you have an outlet.
Well, I started writing them and I was like, this fucking sucks. And then I started talking about them up here and I was like, well, this is the perfect thing. This podcast. Yeah. Boom.
Yeah.
Now I can get all my crazy ideas out.
Exactly. Yeah,
there's the guy who painted that door right there, and the guy who painted the mural over there.
Yeah.
He's the same way, man. He's one of the most incredible artists I've ever come across in this life.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And no one knows his work.
Yeah.
He's a very unnamed guy, but he's gonna. I promise you, one day someone's gonna look at his work and go, "There's something about that."
Yeah. The value. I mean, how many artists throughout history haven't been truly valued, and unfortunately, until after they passed away?
Dude, Van Gogh's a huge one.
Yeah.
One of my faves.
Yeah.
You watch? Are you a fan of Doctor Who?
Not really. I mean,
Okay.
No,
well, you don't have to watch the entire episode, but there's one episode with Van Gogh in it.
Oh
my God. Do you know the concept of Doctor Who?
Yeah, I know basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So Doctor Who, they go to this place and they have this entire episode with Van Gogh. And at the very end of it, he looks at the date and he's like, he's going to die tomorrow. Like tomorrow's his last day. And the woman was like, he doesn't know how great he is. He's never going to know how great he is.
Oh,
so the doctor takes him to the Louvre where all of his paintings are.
Oh, that's so cool.
And he walks him in and he tells the guy who's like the art curator, he's like, in 100 words or less, what can you say about this man Van Gogh? And Van Gogh is standing behind him.
Yeah.
And he's like, goes on this spiel about how he's the most incredible artist ever.
Oh,
dude,
that's so cool.
I cried so hard.
I know. I was like, oh gosh, that's like, that's to know the impact. I was having a conversation not that long ago. So you said something about nostalgia, about people feeling nostalgic. And I was literally having a conversation not too long ago about how, like, as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, like one of the loftiest goals I can think of is creating an experience for people that at some point they will feel nostalgic about.
That is huge.
Yeah.
I guess I never really thought about that.
I know. But
I do that same thing with the music at the bar.
Mm-hmm.
So like on Fridays, I'll play only hits from the 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Because the people that are coming in, like that's nostalgia for them.
Yeah.
So that brings back up those like happy memories of,
right.
the time when I wasn't.
So you're already creating nostalgic moments for people.
Or I just manipulate them to give them.
Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it. But I think there's a lot of value in that. Why? I mean, what is it that's, it is kind of an indulgent nostalgia. I guess if you think about it, is kind of an indulgent thing, an indulgent feeling. But it seems to be positive. Like it's a positive.
Is it?
Well, let's talk about that.
I don't think it's a positive thing.
You don't think nostalgia is a positive thing?
No.
Why?
Because you're looking to the past and going, oh, that was a great time. Why? Like, just enjoy the time you're in.
Yeah, but don't we do things to create memories so that we can look back on them and enjoy them all over again? There's nothing wrong with that. As long as we're not living in the past. That's different than living in the past. But creating these moments that we can revisit in our mind, I think is one of the most beautiful things about life.
I guess. Like I function differently than most people do, I guess.
I mean, I would never want to sacrifice the present or the future or miss something, I wouldn't want to miss something because I was,
What's
daydreaming about the past.
It's weird what the brain records,
Yeah.
Any room that I walk into, I can draw it from the top down perspective. It's a weird thing, but I can't remember the conversation I just had with someone.
Yeah. That
doesn't make any sense. Like, why is my spatial awareness so good, yet I can't remember a conversation?
The structure, I guess, of your brain, your experiences. Frequently I'll watch something, a TV show or a movie, and after the fact I'm like, I can't really remember. I don't, and
is it because you were living in the moment or because your mind was somewhere else whenever you were watching
because I very rarely am like, daydreaming or anything. If I'm watching something, I'm pretty invested in it. Mm-hmm. But once it's over.
That's like the flow state though, right?
Yeah, maybe it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, if you're like living such in the moment that you can't recall, anything, or you're not thinking about the decisions you're making, you're just doing them.
The experience is still part of me. Like it has still impacted me on some level, even if I can't consciously recount every element, right?
Yeah, I guess it's subconscious, right?
Yeah, exactly. Nothing, I always say nothing's ever wasted. No experience, no piece of learning is ever wasteful, is ever wasted. It's always in there. And I think it can always serve a beneficial purpose.
Do you think that your subconscious, you think you've ever like had a conversation with it? Can we separate those two things, the conscious from the subconscious? Because I feel like I have with mine. That's why I'm asking this.
Well, but then is it truly the subconscious if you're doing that?
Well, I think it's like, is dreams is what I'll look at it as. So like, during the daytime, I'll be having these experiences, but then I won't really realize the depth behind the experience until the nighttime when I dream and I think about it and the subconscious comes forward.
Your subconscious has processed it. And then, I think that's a very real thing. But to be able to, go back and forth between the two readily. Yeah, I don't know. Because then I don't think it would be subconscious.
But it's still a part of you.
It is. There's so much. Yeah. Oh gosh. I read something too the other day or heard something. I don't know. There was like 95% of our thoughts are repetitive and usually negative. And and it got me thinking, like, how do you break that cycle, first of all? Because it sounds terrible. That's not an existence I want to be a part of. But how do you create then that? It just, I guess, made me realize the challenge of creating meaningful change if you truly like want to evolve as a human being, if you truly want to, elevate your experience, have it, move forward, if you're constantly subconsciously having, 95% of your thoughts are repetitive and you don't even realize it. I don't, yeah.
Why do they not realize it though?
Because it's your subconscious.
My subconscious is a fucking crazy place. Like it thinks about time travel and shit. Doesn't think about the negative stuff.
Yeah.
I don't understand the whole negative self-talk. I was actually telling this to someone one day. It was one of the comedians that come here. He was saying something bad about himself, and I'm like, don't ever do that.
Oh yeah, you don't put that out there.
Yeah, because the body's always listening.
I say that all the time. Yeah. I say that all the time. I'm like, nope. Your brain is always listening. The universe is always listening. Like, just don't even put it out there.
Well,
why would you do that?
Someone made the point of saying you shouldn't have birthdays anymore. Because each time you have a birthday and you celebrate it, you're giving your body permission to age. I love birthdays, but I just don't think about the age thing at all. It's just like another reason to celebrate. I don't think about it in terms of time passing. And like people are very fixated on that. Oh, it's another birthday. No, I'm just celebrating the day that I was born. Just good enough for me. Everyone should celebrate the day that I was born, not me.
Not you. Everybody else. It should be like a national holiday.
A national holiday, yeah.
When are you born? When were you born? What's your birthday?
December the 27th.
Okay. Oh, you're like post-Christmas baby.
Yeah.
Did you get like gypped on your birthday presents growing up?
I mean, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Not really though. It was just like, I got them right after.
Yeah.
They gave me the option of like doing it in the middle of the year, but I was like, whatever. Just give me the presents. I don't care.
Are you like, are gifts a thing for you? Like,
What do you mean?
I mean, some people don't really care that much about getting gifts.
Yeah,
some people do. Is that your love language?
No.
No.
I don't think I have a love language.
And you just haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, someone gave me that book one time. I was like, you should read this. And I'm like, nah.
I can't really. I mean, I know the things that I don't identify with, but I have a harder time, like trying to pin down one thing or another. I don't know.
Well, like which ones? What there's like the gift thing.
Yeah, gifts. I don't really
like touch.
Yeah, and touch is so. It's like for me, it's so dependent on, the person. Obviously, like it's not a. Yeah, because I definitely have been accused of like not being the warmest person, but I'm like that's not me. It really is. It really isn't. It's just a situational, individual thing. And words of affirmation.
Yeah. I definitely wouldn't be able to do that.
No,
I just don't think of it, you know?
Oh, you wouldn't be able to give that, like give work?
Yeah, I don't even do it to like the people that work here. Like I know they probably want me to be like,
good job.
Yeah. I don't even do that. And then one day, there was a guy, he's like, dude, I know I don't tell you do a good job very often. And I'm like, yeah, because you don't have to. That's
it's interesting because I don't really need to be told good job. I mean, everybody, it's valued. I appreciate it, but I don't need it the way some people really need like words of affirmation.
Yeah.
I don't, because I think I'm always trying to do my best. And if I feel like I've done my best, then I'm good.
It's great. Yeah. It's all you can do.
Yeah, exactly. Acts of service. Maybe that would be it for me. Like, just help me out. Just help me carry this very heavy thing. I don't know. Like that probably, if I had to like pick one, maybe that would be it for me. Quality time. It's so bad, but I'm just like, I have so much stuff to do.
Yeah, I feel that.
It's like, I don't know. Yeah. I definitely know people that, that quality time is very, very important. And I think it's important just in general. Like it is important to be able to like unplug and stop and slow down and enjoy those moments, which, you can then be nostalgic about later.
What have you noticed, the difference in things for men? Cause I feel like most men would be like
Physical touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, have you noticed different aspects in like the men you've been with?
I don't know. I don't know that I have, if my sample size is big enough, Kyle. But just like, I mean, and observing, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I would say that physical touch is a big one. And then words of affirmation, I think, is big for men in general, but
Soft men.
Soft, do you think so?
Yeah.
Interesting. Ooh, I wonder what your audience is going to have to say about that.
Man, tell them to bring it. I don't need words of affirmation, so they can.
Yeah, you. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Not everybody needs it. It depends. I wonder. So the things I wonder about is like, what is it that creates? I don't know. I didn't read the book, so what creates your love language?
I would say it's got to be the way you were nurtured, right?
Right. Same thing that creates your morals and your ethics and everything else. But then how do you explain children raised in the same family that have completely different love languages? Because my 2 children have completely different. Now it's a boy and a girl.
Yeah, they are different sexes.
So yeah, there's that. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to think about my sister.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have a clue what she would be.
Yeah. Really?
And I don't even know what I am. Like, I feel like I'm just nothing. I don't know. It's interesting because we were definitely raised in the same family, but we're very different people.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to do with our experiences in life.
Yeah.
Because we've lived very different lives. She lives a life closer to what my mother did.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like outside of the box.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's why we're very different humans. But I mean, I think that all influences your love languages as well. Because think about if your son or your daughter gets hurt by, someone they're dating,
mm-hmm.
that's going to change the way they feel about dating forever.
Yeah. But does it change but would it change their love language? I don't know.
I feel like it would, because
you think so?
I think that if
it's traumatic enough.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think, and that's, yes.
Because it could make you take a negative context on it and be like, fuck it, I'm just going to use them for their money or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. But then that's not really changing your love language. That's just more changing your world view. I think, I think your basic need underneath all of that trauma probably doesn't change, because I think that a lot of our personality really is there with us when we're born.
Okay. I'll agree to that.
So my question to you is, are you and your sister different because of your life experiences, or are your life experiences different because you're different people?
Ooh, I like that. And I think that you're probably onto something with that second statement. And I think one of my big takes on that is whenever I was having that experience with meditation and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Things came back to me
Mm-hmm.
that were always there,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know it because I was Kyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was playing the character Kyle. And once that actually came back to me, I realized that I'm something bigger than Kyle. But for right now, I am playing Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I can't really explain it any more than that, because people are just going to have their own experiences with things like this.
Yeah.
Because most people will listen to what I say and go, that sounds like fucking bullshit, And honestly, if someone would have told me the experience that I had before I had it, then I would have said the same thing.
So how can would you ever have the desire, through filmmaking, because we know it's my passion, and yours too. How would you ever have the desire through filmmaking to take people on the journey that would help explain that or give them insight into that?
It's very interesting you say that, because there's actually a movie out there already that does a very similar thing to a Kundalini awakening. Is one way it's one of the names for what I would say happened.
Mm-hmm.
The film is called A Trip to Magic Mountain or something like that. I'll have to look it up and post the name in here. But it's an interesting film because it looks like fucking chaos.
Yeah.
If you don't actually have a clue about the chakras and like what it takes to actually overcome these chakras and things and awaken them. But if you actually take it from that perspective, that's what this filmmaker was doing. He was giving you an experience that'll visually stimulate you in such a way that'll make you overcome the 7 chakras and reach a state of enlightenment. But this movie never went anywhere. And I think there's a reason for movies like that. Yeah. Because they don't want people to wake up. Whoever the they is. So I think that even if you could remake that movie or make it better, then it probably wouldn't get out there.
So do you think that you say that the they would not want people to wake up? Do you think that the they are awake enough to even have the awareness to try and impede something like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because in my mind, we've went down... Okay, I would say that initially when we started this path, okay, where they were like, we're gonna nullify information and pacify humanity. They had the right reasons to do it. Like we want power, but I think that we've went so many generations down the line that the people that are in power today are just simply going through the motions that were set before them, rather than actually knowing why they're doing it. Kind of like the monkeys and the ladder. Experiment. You know this? Where they put 4 monkeys in a room and put a ladder and then bananas above them. And every time the monkeys tried to go up the ladder, they would spray them with a cold water hose.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And they slowly removed one monkey after another and introduced a new monkey. And by the end of the experiment, the monkeys were beating the hell out of each other and they didn't have a clue why. Yeah. Because there were no bananas up there.
Right.
But yeah, I think we're in the same situation right now where we have a society where people are simply going through the motions that were set before them and they have no clue why they're doing it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting to think about that and how much if we could rewind time and, and sort of remove that. But then was it inevitable? Just, based on human nature, was this an inevitable course of humanity?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the ebb and flow, right? You have to a society rises and a society falls. Like I think it's just time. And this is where my view on the world comes in, is where I don't think that the quantum reality of splitting timelines works. I think that we're literally living on a torus. And the planet moving through space is, the 4th dimension. And when you go one more dimension up, you have a torus field. So I think that time, as we see it right now, has already happened. If we could look across the solar system where the Earth used to be, we would still see, the dinosaurs or whatever's over there.
Yeah.
And we're just living in a loop,
right? A
simulation.
Okay.
And I think that maybe we can nudge things along the path. But I think that everything really has a set course that it has to play. I think you can even look at your life this way. Like you have a place that you're supposed to be and a thing you're supposed to be doing. And whenever you're not on that right path, you start getting resistance.
So that's a very Hindu sort of belief with the idea of dharma. That was also, kind of the idea. And ironically also that was an idea in Plato's Republic too, where you had this role to play. And if you didn't, and that your highest state of happiness would be in fulfilling that role, or, in Dharma, and I don't want to speak like I'm an expert, but my understanding is that, you have this role that you are destined to fulfill. And it's through that role that you achieve greater states of enlightenment. But that if you try to do something different, and this is, Plato looked at it more from a societal success perspective, but if you did not fulfill that role, you would be creating resistance or you would receive resistance depending on which, and I'm sure that there are a lot more examples out there, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
Why not? What do you think?
I feel like I have to really, I don't know. I have to really think about it. Here's the thing, I guess, that's important for me. I don't want anybody else having some sort of determination over what my purpose is.
Mm.
Do I think that I have one? Sure. But do I really have a full concept or realization of what that is? I think that's ever evolving. So I would never want to be, sort of corralled in by anybody or anything else. That would be depressing.
Do you believe in astrology at all?
Yeah, to some degree, I feel like this, so this is where I think that there's scientifically, I think that there's something to, if you look at the energy of the universe, it has a very real effect, right? I mean, it's undeniable. I mean, a real tangible physical effect. Mm-hmm. So I think that's got to manifest itself. So I don't think it's completely, to a degree. I mean, I think it's manipulated and misconstrued and misrepresented a lot.
Yeah,
but
newspaper.
Yeah. But I think that there's got to be something to, if you just look at something as simple as, the gravitational pull from the moon on the tides. I mean, there's, and what is that, and just continue that through its natural conclusion. The universe around us affects us. We're energetic physical beings living in a physical energetic universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there was a guy, I watched a video on YouTube one time, and he was looking at people's faces and telling them their sign. And I was like, who the fuck is this guy? So I go and start looking him up, and the videos he had on YouTube are incredible. Yeah. And so I went to his website, and then I signed up for his wait list, and it took me a whole year to get in with the guy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. A year. When he does your reading, you can choose if you want to pay him or not, give him like a certain amount. But I was like, I'll give you the full amount before, just try to get in quicker. Yeah. But it still took me a fucking year to get to him.
Wow.
But it was the most incredible thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Really?
Yes. He sat there with my star chart, and I have the video on my computer at home, and because he records it and sends it all to you, sends all the stuff, his breakdown and stuff. But he starts from the day you were born, and he goes through like your entire life, and he doesn't look up. He's just looking down at the star chart and like telling you these things. And at one point I cut him off, and I was like, how are you
doing that? How do you know?
And he's like, oh, I'm looking at the stars, I'm looking at this. And I was like, but like, what are you drawing from? He's like, this is everything. He's like, this is all connected. It's all like one big thing. And I'm simply telling you like what the stars are saying about your life. And he goes up until the point of my age right now. And he says, do you want me to go farther? Like, do you want me to tell you the future or the path you should be on? And I basically said, point me in a direction. Okay. And he said, he told me an idea I was working on, which is fucking insane because I was working on the idea. Okay. And it's something that I hadn't told many people about. And he said, the idea we were talking about, he's like, you need to follow that. He's like, that's the path that you need to be on. And I said, okay. And I've yet to follow that idea.
Wait, is it the idea that we were talking about a couple of years ago or no? Something totally, that's okay. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I followed up on it. It's like, there's more stuff on it now.
Yeah. I can imagine. I'm
kind of working on it, but like not full throttle. Yeah. Because you'll drive yourself crazy working full throttle all the time. Yeah. But yeah, he's like, if you stay on that path, you're not going to get resistance. He's like, that's the path you should be on. Okay. And I'm telling you, it's incredible.
That's wild.
I'll send you the guy's website. Yeah. You can try to get in with him because it's pretty incredible. And I'm scared to go back and rewatch it because I know there was things he told me at the time, but I was kind of like lost in what he said before.
Have you not rewatched it?
I rewatched half of it, and only because someone asked me to sit down and watch it with me. And we got halfway through it, and I was like, I'm not watching this anymore.
So if he was able to go forward, does that mean though that that everything is predestined and then
that's kind of what he was saying.
What's the point then?
Well, so his take was that there's influence that you have choice. And that's what he was saying. You can either stay on this path, you can go this way. So there is choice, but if you, once again, the resistance thing.
Path of least resistance.
Like your life is still going to occur, but you're going to get more resistance if you go down this road. Like your life's going to be easier if you go the other way. So I think that there is,
But would you take a path that would be the least to resist? I
don't I feel like there's going to be resistance both ways,
I mean, life kind of is full, no matter what. Life is kind of full of resistance.
Yeah. So I mean, it's
our own resistance to change, for one.
Yeah, and that could be one thing that I'm going through right now. Is like I don't want to give up, the life that I have right now.
Yeah,
because it's a pretty dope life.
Yeah.
And I know to go the other route would be, but I think you can do both.
Mm-hmm.
This is my thought process is to stimulate change in the normative ways that we have. You'd be a politician, you would try to work in the system.
Mm-hmm.
But the way my brain works is I think you can skirt the system. So like basically when I look at the system of Earth, I think that right now there's a virus. And in order to get a computer virus out, you create, something to squash the computer virus. So it's basically my way around what's, I don't know. I'm trying to hack the universe, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like he told
just
me
a little, these little goals you have, Kyle.
I feel like I can. Yeah, I feel like my understanding of magic is good enough now that I can hack the universe.
That's excellent. I want to live in that state. But I mean, to some degree, I do believe in, I've never been one to feel like I've been, a victim of fate, or that I had no power, that I had no influence, that everything was sort of predetermined. Like I've never felt that way. And I know people that I definitely have always known people that felt that way, and they always seem to be less happy.
Yeah. When you feel like you don't have control, of course you're less happy.
Yeah. And I don't ever want to exist that way. It doesn't come naturally to me. So I think, I find a lot of peace in that, even when things are extraordinarily difficult, which they are right now. I mean, there's some wonderful things, but I'm going like, it's cyclical. You go through times that are very easy and smooth, and sometimes, despite your best efforts, things can get very, very challenging.
Well, I mean, there's probably a reason that you're doing philosophy and theosophy right now.
Yeah.
The universe has a way of bringing you what you need when you need it.
I agree with that. And that's why I always say nothing is ever wasted. So I have faith in that. I absolutely have faith in that. And that knowing that, everything that you need is provided. And it's just, that's why I think I'm so much less resistant to change than I used. I mean, I've always been pretty adaptable, but I think I'm far less resistant to it now, because it's kind of beautiful to see how things work out. Because
most people, I would say, become more resistant as they get older.
Yeah. I think that's very true, because, you try to work in a particular direction for your life, I guess, just supposing here, and then you come to a place that, if you're goal oriented, right? Which I am, but if you're goal oriented and when you work toward a goal, you achieve a goal, and you have, sort of attained some semblance of this world, this life that you've envisioned. And then you don't want that to change, right? Why would you want that to change? And I think that, it's like a Buddhist teaching but if you don't have the expectation, I'm not Buddhist, but there's something definitely to that. Like if you don't have the expectation, how freeing is that? I mean, first of all, you don't have the disappointment that comes from, expectations not being met. But it's freeing. I don't think you can entirely let go of expectation.
I think that's what, and I know you don't want to hear this, but I think that's what mushrooms gave me.
Okay.
Yeah, because.
And I will always argue that there's another way, but hey, it's
I agree. There are other ways to do these things, but it freed me from ego. It's like in my early 20s, all I wanted to do was work out because I cared about how I looked. I cared about going out and finding women and, doing all these things. But then once I took those mushrooms, and you could argue that it was because I was older too, I was in a more mature state, but that it like freed me from something. And that's also what scares some of my friends, because I have friends that, they knew me then and they know me now. And there's almost like a ferocity that left me. And I would say it's like Mike Tyson too,
Oh, yeah.
Even the fight through the night, whatever. But Mike, when he was young, he was hungry.
Mm-hmm.
And then once he like got into mushroom, Mike, there was something that left him. And it's that hunger that we have that like it frees us from. And that hunger is the idea of what we should be and where we should be in life.
So, but, oh yeah. Okay. So again, another conversation I was having, but so if you let go of the expectation, what does that do about your desire to improve yourself, to grow, to achieve things, which I think is extremely healthy. And I think is the natural state of human beings. The best natural state is to want to improve yourself. And, so how do you reconcile that idea of wanting to achieve things and progress and grow? How do you reconcile that with letting go of expectation? And maybe somebody out there can tell me.
The person you have to listen to is right here. Okay. So,
okay. All right. Somebody out there. Okay.
Somebody out there may have a better answer than what I'm about to give. But yes, right now you're with me. So you're stuck with me.
All right. Okay.
No, what I would say is that also what it did when it freed me of that drive, because I was in overdrive mode always then. Like I wanted to work out an hour and a half a day. Yeah. I had to go to every audition that I could get a chance on. I had to write whenever off time, I was just that guy always. But what it's done for me is it's gave me the realization that there is the ebb and flow to life. So, I mean, there are times when I have downtime, when I'm not doing anything for a month, I'm just meditating. But then there are times where I'm also working for a month. I just, it's a balance thing now.
Yeah.
So I still have it. It's just, now I work in such a way where I'm more, what's the way to put this? I achieve more with less effort.
Because you're not working because you're working into more of a flow state or a state of where there's less resistance.
Yeah, like it's almost like I understand the universe now. Yeah. Where like if I were gonna make a baby, we'd wait until you were ovulating and then we would make a baby.
Right.
So I wait until the universe is ovulating and then I go to work.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. That actually makes a lot of sense. And I think to some degree, I actually have learned to do the same thing because I've started to recognize now that there are times when maybe it's not the time for certain things, but maybe it's, a really great time for me to be creative. And I lean hard into that now. I really do. And it's been tremendous. Like that really makes a lot of sense. And I can recognize it now. It's like, okay, I'm feeling this. I sense this. Okay, this is not a good time for me to, go out and try and negotiate contracts. This is a much better time for me to be a little bit more insular and write. Yeah. And it absolutely is.
That comes from an understanding of self too.
Yeah.
I think it's something a lot of people lack these days is that it's the time to sit down and be with self,
Yeah. It's really important. That time I think and that's something that I have, people in my life have tried to take that from me. I don't do well with that.
Right. That's the reason I'm single too.
Yeah. I mean,
my time is very valuable.
Yeah. It's important for me, for my well-being, for me fulfilling my purpose, if you will, or, or being in the state that I need to be in. I have just recognized that is the person that I am. And I'm okay with that. I need that period of time. So, I've learned to defend that mightily and not feel bad about it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of people that do, they give away their time freely and don't even think about it.
Yeah. I give away a lot of my time, but that also means that I have to be, very intentional with the time that I take for myself, for my art, for my brain, for my body, whatever it is, I have to be really intentional and I don't want to say selfish, but protective.
Dude, there's been a lot of people that have called me selfish in my time. And and I don't even have the stuff that you have going on. Like I know how much stuff you have going on. Yeah. So for someone to call me selfish, I must really be holding out,
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it is, but it's something that, I've made decisions. And I have to be intentional about those. Sometimes and I'm getting better. I'm still learning and I'm still getting better about that. But I have definitely learned a lot about what I absolutely need to function at my highest level. Mm-hmm. And I have to be, sleep is one of those things.
Big one, yeah.
Don't mess with my sleep. Very protective of it because it affects me. I won't make any big decisions if I am tired.
Interesting.
I will not do it.
That's a good way because, like I said, you get a little loopy whenever you don't sleep.
It's true. And I definitely have, you get people who want an answer, they want a decision. And if I am sleep deprived, tired, or, if I'm cranky, that's probably it. I don't get cranky a lot. If I'm cranky, that's probably it. And I'll just be like, talk to me after I've had a good night's sleep and I'll give you a good, intelligent, well thought out decision.
I think it's a good place to end on right there, Fiona. Yeah. Where can the people find you at?
So me personally, FionaMcquinn.com. Also my production company that I have with my two business partners is TryLegacyFilms.com. And also to put the Abita Springs Film Festival, International Film Festival on people's radar, which is coming up in January, which we did not even get to talk about. So now I have to come back before January.
Okay. Yeah. I can get you back in.
Okay.
You're always welcome here.
Hey. Okay.
Well, thank you for coming in today, Fiona.
Thank you for having me.